On the second Sunday of Advent, John the Baptist takes center stage. Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths. Let every mountain be made low, let every valley be filled in. Let the rough ways be made smooth. Prepare the way of the Lord. What does John's message mean for us? On the Sunday night before Thanksgiving, about 150 volunteers gathered in the narthex to do the annual packing of grocery bags for the Edwardsburg Food Pantry's annual Thanksgiving distribution. And those of you who have been part of it over the years know how it works. Again, we set an all-time record, I think, this year. We packed over 500 grocery bags in 45 minutes. It was pretty amazing. But as those of you who participate, you know how it works. Everybody gets divided up into pairs, and so you work as a pair. And then each pair just goes around the walls, and one carries the empty grocery bag, maybe in a carton or a cardboard tray, and the other one takes a can from each of the different piles of different foods and bags that into the bag, and that's how the bags get packed. And everybody goes through the line, I think 10 or 12 times, in order to get all these hundreds of grocery bags packed. Well, this year, one of the volunteers in particular impressed me. She was a young teenager. She happened to have cerebral palsy, not a member of our parish, in fact, but she was there with her mother. And she was in this motorized wheelchair with the big tray. And so she and her mother were one of the pairs bagging the groceries. And this young teenage girl, she was the one who held the empty grocery bag on her chair. And as she kind of motored along through the narthex, her mom, of course, would take the cans of food and so on and place them in the bags. And of course, they went through the line lots of times, just like everybody else. I had a chance to meet them and greet them and talk with them a little bit. But I was just very, very impressed to see how this young girl, despite her disability, really wanted to be part of this service project. Well, later in the night, when everybody was gone and I was turning off all the lights and locking all the doors, I couldn't help but have kind of a secret feeling of being very gratified and satisfied, and even some pride, because that girl in the wheelchair was able to get in, thanks to what you paid for in the church construction and remodeling. We have a ramp at that door. We have automatic doors. Those things don't come cheap. They're expensive, and it was an effort to include those in the remodeling job. But because of that, she and so many others have been able to access not just our place of worship, but even the different community events that take place in our facilities. Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths. Every mountain shall be made low, every valley shall be filled in, and the rough ways shall be made smooth. It was back in 1990 when the first President Bush signed the Americans with Disabilities Act at the White House. And as you may know, this was the act over 25 years ago that in fact outlawed discrimination against all those with any physical or mental impairment. And this legislation was kind of in the making for a long time. Why? Because it caused an awful lot of change. It was going to cost an awful lot of money. Schools had to come up with new educational programs to be more inclusive. All commercial and public buildings that were new or being remodeled had to have barrier-free access. And so there was a great deal involved in this, and it took some time. It was Ronald Reagan who first established the committee to research what was needed, But the legislation really only got put together and into Congress in the late 1980s. And as I say, it was actually signed by the first President Bush back in 1990. And about just a couple months before the signing of the bill, there was a public demonstration to promote the bill, to support the bill in Washington, D.C. And during this public demonstration outside the Capitol, at one point, the disability activists, about 60 of them who were in wheelchairs, they actually kind of fell out of their wheelchairs and crawled up the 83 steps of the Capitol. Picture that. 3 months later, the bill was signed. Prepare the way of the Lord. Make straight his paths. Remove the barriers. And let the Lord in. I also found myself thinking about that famous parable that's told in Luke's gospel about the prodigal son. We all know it so well. We know the details. The son goes off and squanders everything. He finally comes back, and the father throws a big party for him because he's back. And then the older son won't go in the house to the party. Why not? Were there too many steps? Were the doors too heavy to open for him? The barrier for him was an interior barrier. Self-righteousness. Jealousy, resentment. At this time of the Advent season, our parish and so many other parishes have the sacraments of reconciliation, either in the individual form or in the communal form. We'll be doing it a week from tomorrow night and then repeat it again a week from Tuesday morning. The sacrament of reconciliation is a wonderful opportunity for us, each one of us, to look inside and see where are those interior dispositions that are barriers for us, that keep us from others, that somehow block the way for us to the fullness of God's life and grace and his ways for us. Can we lift those up to God, seek forgiveness and mercy and the grace to start again? Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight his paths. Let down the barriers. Welcome the Lord anew into your heart.